Coming up this week, off screen, the Thunder Buddies are back in Ted 2. Tom Six returns for the final part of his horror trilogy in the Human Centipede 3 final sequence. John Cusack is Brian Wilson, but who's Paul Dano? In Beach Boys' biopic Love and Mercy, Irish animation is the order of the day in Oscar-nominated tale Song of the Sea, and the issue of race in America gets the satirical treatment in Dear White People. All of those to come and more off screen.
This is Off Screen. Off Screen. Off Screen. Off Screen. With the latest film news and reviews, this is Off Screen, the on-screen radio show.
Welcome to Off Screen. I'm Van Connor.
I am Kase Allen.
I'm Chris Watson.
You don't sound too enthusiastic, Wilson.
No, not very.
Right, so shall we kick off this week with Song of the Sea then?
Let's do it.
So this is the one that came out of nowhere for the Oscar nominations this last year. You know, every year you get that one that isn't DreamWorks, isn't Pixar, Disney, and isn't Studio Ghibli. You know,
sometimes
the
wins.
other one.
Sometimes wins.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
What was the one a few years ago? Was it I want to say not Cosmopolis. That's the Cronenberg film. Persepolis.
Yeah,
How you
which
pronounce
is
it, yeah.
really, really great.
Was it
really
Persepolis?
good film.
Persepolis?
Yeah.
Persepolis, isn't it?
Well, this year it's...
He always looks to me to try and pronounce words.
I do. You're the pronunciation
guy,
expert
yeah.
of our little venture. So this year, of course, that unexpected nominee was Song of the Sea, which I believe, not knowing anything about it at the time, I think I mistook for a Studio Ghibli film. And this is actually an Irish production by Tom Moore, and it's based on sort of legends of the sea. This is the story of a young girl from a fractured family who've been ripped apart by tragedy, namely the death sort of during childbirth of the mother figure. Years later, she must team up with her her brother with whom she doesn't quite get along, to go on a journey, first to get back home when they're separated from their father, but also to actually save the world of the spirits and a race of creatures which I believe are called Selkies, which are just like the young girl in question, basically beings who can transform into seals and sing the Song of the Sea. We have a clip.
Now, settle down. There's something I want to give you.
What is it?
This is an ancient shell that my mother gave me a long time ago. Hold it to your ear and listen carefully. You will hear the Song of the Sea.
I can hear the sea.
So you get the idea from there. It's very much it's a young child clip, so they are actually children's voices, rather than let's get a 20-year-old in there and just get him to do that Chris Pine voice. Remember when Chris Pine playing a teenager? It's just Chris Pine.
Rise of the Guardians,
which I was a big fan of actually.
I enjoyed that. Ali Baldwin doing a Russian Santa. It's always a good time.
I wished Rise of the Guardians had been live action, but aside from that, it would have been amazing in live action. But no, Song of the Sea, which I was quite a big fan of, and I think it's kind of like the Moomins. Remember the Moomins do the Riviera?
Of course, yeah.
Well, the big selling point of the Moomins was its animated style, its style of animation, which was kind of out there and very much of a specific time and influence. And this is a very similar type of thing. This looks like the weird homogenization of like a half dozen iPad games. A bit of Studio Ghibli and that sort of doe-eyed anime that's all the rage with the cosplay community sort of crowd at the moment. And you saw this with me.
Yeah, I sort of got a bit of a snowman in there as well.
You bit of a snowman?
Yeah, there's one sequence where they're travelling home and there's a bit of flying and all that.
Whimsy. It's got whimsy.
It's got whimsy. And I expected someone to start singing, "We're walking in the air."
Were you let down? We're walking over the sea. I
It's
think that's
to join in.
Yeah.
After watching the film, somebody starts singing.
That's the thing. Strangely, of all the releases this week, this is not the one that stops to do musical numbers. That's another film later on. But no, I think the voice cast is superbly picked for it. There's no real name talent in there. It's Brendan Gleeson's, I think, arguably the only name involved. I mean, there's Fionnuala Flanagan, for instance, is the role of the grandmother, but I wouldn't really call her a name star. She's sort of TV guest star type performance. She was in Four Brothers, wasn't she? Yeah. She was the mum in Four Brothers. That movie that gave us yet another great Tyrese performance to hang our hats on.
Of which there are loads.
Of which there are loads. Please make him Green Lantern, please.
It's gonna happen.
It's gotta happen. But no, say Brendan Gleeson's the big name star, and the cast are all very, very aware, it seems, of the type of film they're providing voices for. They get the fantastical style and the fairy tale-like nature of it, and it plays like a sort of Celtically inspired fairy tale. With a smidge of sort of Viking-esque mythology to it in a strange way, with a sort of almost Viking-like Norse god figure in the background. But it is all down to the animated style, and that's what sets it apart. And you won't see a film anywhere near this sort of level of imagination, I think, this year as far as animated fare goes. I mean, this lost Best Animated Film to Big Hero 6. And it tells you an awful lot about how they gauged those films that it did. Because this is far more visually impressive than Big Hero 6. Big Hero 6 was a ride, and it was an excellent film. Yeah. This isn't quite as good a film, but in terms of representing the genre of animation, is a much superior effort.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine in like the animation circles, this is the film of the year.
I think so. I think this is the one that I think that they're meeting up at their Friday night pubathons from their different companies, passing the disc under the bar stools. Check this one out that Tom Moore's done. Honestly, you'll be impressed.
Previously, he did a film called Secret of Kells.
Yeah, I never got to see this one.
Well, that was also nominated for Best Animated Feature. So, as far as I'm aware, I think that's now 2 for 2.
So he's 2 for 2.
He's 2 for 2. So we'll see what happens next year when people might be realising him for like his own style and just similar kind of thing.
Well, I hope so. I mean, as a sort of sophomore effort goes, I think this is pretty impressive. So, Wilson, you sold on it?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Right, okay, so we get some film news. We've got like 3 deaths to get through. 3 obituaries this week.
One of which happened today, wasn't it?
One was this morning. Yeah. So let's start with Omar Sharif, which was yesterday afternoon. So Friday afternoon, Omar Sharif passed away, aged 83, of a heart attack in a Cairo hospital. I didn't know he still lived in Cairo. He moved back to Cairo years ago.
Yeah.
And Omar Sharif, I mean, the story of this guy is brilliant. This is a guy who, Egyptian actor, became the George Clooney of Egypt. At one stage in the 50s, he was Egypt's George Clooney before there was a George Clooney, and then David Lean came along.
It was like, hey, I've got a film for you.
Yeah, in that way that only David Lean could have, and said, "Hey Omar, you want to come and do your Clooney shtick for us? We got this film, Larry of the Sandland, Lawrence of Arabia. That's what we're going to call it. Come, be our star." And it was his breakthrough role, and we all remember that iconic shot. And the BBC in the last 24 hours have milked the shot to death of him riding from the distance. And then, of course, he followed that up with the role in another David Lean film, which was Dr. Zhivago, which I think is a more prominent role, yet isn't quite as recognised as Lawrence of Arabia. Because Lawrence of Arabia had more, I think, Academy Award recognition for Peter O'Toole, for instance. And
yeah, were they both nominated?
They were both nominated, but I think Lawrence of Arabia was more highly regarded, I think, than Dr. Zhivago.
I think that's fair to say.
But, one of the world's best card players, apparently, Omar Sharif, made a name for himself in many casinos around the world.
He's like a world poker player?
He was a world poker player, I believe. And, unfortunately, in recent months he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and finally, having left behind a son and 2 grandchildren, one of whom is also an actor named Omar Sharif Jr., so go figure on that one. Yes, he's finally departed us, and what a shame. I'd always hoped he'd make a comeback. I'd always hoped for an elderly comeback. Because there was a point when he threatened to. When he started appearing in The 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas and things like that. And you thought, oh my God, is Omar Sharif is he going to do this? Is he going to do his later life comeback?
I don't think that he ever fully kind of retired up until this year, really.
He kept appearing, didn't he?
He kept just appearing in the odd thing.
So, of course, Jerry Weintraub, super producer. He has also left us this last week, aged 77. Pretty much a mainstay of sort of 70s and 80s Hollywood. He came to prominence really with The Karate Kid in the mid 80s, and then it went through a number of spectacular flops throughout the 90s. Eventually, finally found his winning poker chip with the Ocean's 11 sort of trilogy, the Ocean's trilogy as it were, and then of course remade The Karate Kid, which, as far as I know, is one of his final films. And let's not hold that against him, because you know what? To his credit, it at least made money.
So, a lot of money.
And he left behind a lot of friends, it seems, because there's been a lot of very nice things said about Jerry Weintraub, particularly by people like George Clooney, Brad Pitt, etc. And finally, and this one was this morning, Roger Rees has passed away, aged 71. Roger Rees of such comedy stable. You were a fan, I believe, as well, because you recently watched him in The West Wing, didn't you?
Yeah, he's Lord John Marbury.
He is. Is he the British ambassador?
He is the British ambassador.
You Roger Rees fan, Wilson?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Wilson and I recently watched Robin Hood Men in Tights, because Wilson had never seen it. And
Really?
Yeah. You've got to watch this. Yeah, you've got to watch this. It's
a
amazing.
cameo at the end.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and for me that is Roger Rees' finest role, because it's a slapstick spoof, but it shows you how good a Mel Brooks spoof is, but also how good you can be in a Mel Brooks spoof. And Roger Rees took what should be a relatively one-note gag and really ran with it. I think it's the finest comedic performance of his career as the Sheriff of Rottingham. So, oh well, never thee well. What else we got? Oh, J.K. Simmons has not died. I want to point out, J.K. Simmons has not died.
You dare
there was a moment. So J.K. Simmons is going to be reteaming with the director of Whiplash, Damien Chazelle,
La La Land,
to star in a musical called La La Land with Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. Because when's that partnership going to get old? Well, they had 3 films now. This has been the third one.
Great Stupid Love, Gangster Squad, but I would prefer not to talk about.
Were you not a fan of that one?
I hated it.
I liked Gangster Squad. It was like the Punisher. It was like a Punisher-style video game in places. It was.
What was Sean Penn on? Like,
he was on some of that Nicolas Cage juice. That's
It probably can't answer that fully due to legal ramifications. So
yeah.
Right, should we do another review then? Should we have a look at the Human Centipede 3 final sequence?
Let's not.
If we absolutely have to.
I'd rather not, believe me, but yes, the Human Centipede 3, which is, this is supposedly the end of the trilogy. This one takes another step back behind the meta curtain. So last time around, which was an awful film that ended with a woman doing unspeakable things to a newborn baby, and all in the name of entertainment, apparently. The crux last time around was in Human Centipede 2, in the world of Human Centipede 2, the Human Centipede was a movie within that movie. Now, in Human Centipede 3, Human Centipede 1 and 2 are movies within this movie. This one takes place at a unnamed desert-based US prison run by the warden named Bill Boss, who's played by the first movie's lead, Dieter Laser, which is the greatest name.
Such a good name.
It is, isn't it?
Dieter Laser.
Do you imagine like having a restaurant reservation? They call you from the bar. Dieter Laser, your table is ready. So you've got Dieter Laser, who plays Bill Boss, the foul-mouthed, racist, sexist, evil warden of this prison, overcrowded, underfunded prison, and his accountant, Dwight, who's played by the second movie's lead, Lawrence R. Harvey. So you've got first movie lead, second movie lead. They are the leads of the third one together, where they are also joined by Tom Six, the director, playing himself, and Eric Roberts as the state governor.
Because it's a film.
Because it's a film, so Eric Roberts must be in it. Did I work out at one point Eric Roberts has something like 300 IMDb credits to his name?
it is something like that. Yeah,
it is.
He just stars in anything.
Well,
He just walks onto movie sets.
It came up
there's Eric
because
Roberts.
I worked out that Julia Roberts has something like 35. So Julia Roberts has 35.
Yeah.
The brother has 10 times that.
Yeah, but she picks far better roles. Well, say far better, far more commercially successful roles, shall we say? Eric Roberts wants to appear in one of
more options, more choices.
Are we calling Mary Riley a commercial vehicle? Because that. I don't think that one ever really took off.
There's a lot better than Sharktopus.
How dare you speak of Sharktopus?
Yeah, I mean, commercially
Somebody
speaking.
the sequel, then.
Commercially speaking, Sharktopus is a classic film.
So back to Human Centipede then. So basically the crux around this one is that in order to solve the problems of the prison, namely underfunding, overcrowding, escalation of violence, the warden, under the suggestion of his accountant, decides to create the world's first human prison centipede, in which he takes all of the convicts under his supervision and stitches them into a sort of interchangeable, easily removable human centipede. The idea being that once you've served your time, you can be disconnected from the centipede and the rest, and normal service resumed for the rest. We have a clip in which this process is explained to us. Well, more the benefits of the process are explained to us.
Well, sir, more than $50 billion a year are spent on corrections. Yet more than 4 in 10 offenders nationwide return to prison within 3 years of their release. This, despite a massive increase in state expenditure. But not anymore. This human prison centipede will reduce crime dramatically. It will be a deterrent to anyone considering a career in crime. And no more recidivism.
Digestion in progress.
So, given the level of thought that seems to have gone into why you would realistically want to construct a human prison centipede, yeah, I mean, one thing you can't say about the film is that it's not been given a degree of thought. It just happens to have been given a degree of thought by someone who should never be allowed to think about anything ever. It is, on every conceivable level, appalling. It is crass, it is vulgar, it is exploitative, and not in a fun way, not in a grisly fun way. On no level does this film work. No level whatsoever. It just exists. It's like this void. Remember Interstellar, when they're travelling between, our universe and the other one, and they're in the wormhole, and it's like nothingness.
Was that the bit where you were saying mirth?
Yeah,
Did you say mirth?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that void of no, I mean like the actual wormhole itself.
Yeah.
In that void of nothingness, that's basically the space in which this film would be considered worthwhile, because there is literally nothing else. Dieter Laser and Lawrence Harvey seem to be putting in what can only be described as Looney Tunes performances. So over the top, so far-fetched. They've got an actress who appears to be a porn star playing their secretary Daisy, who is called upon to do some absolutely horrific things on camera. Eric Roberts can now genuinely say that DOA, Dead or Alive, is not the worst thing on his IMDb filmography. I don't know how much they paid him for this. I imagine it would have to be something impressive, though. This is appalling. This makes his time on Entourage look accomplished. It's just gobsmackingly poor. And then you've got Tom Six, who arrives in what can only be described as the most self-celebratory, self-backslapping, self-congratulatory... And I struggle to come up with a term for it that doesn't defer to pornography. Because it really is. It's like performing an act of fellatio on oneself. That's the only way to describe his role here. There is a point in which he turns up in his own film to be told how wonderful the pop culture impact of his work is. And that they can only name a porn parody and South Park kind of speaks volumes to that. So, I mean, good God, this is awful. It's terrible. It's just dreadful. It's shot in this leering, just drippingly awful way. The whole film seems to be painted with bile. It's got this colour tint to it that looks like someone literally vomited bile into a bucket and then painted it over celluloid before then feeding it back into Final Cut and dizzying it up some more and adding some grain. It is just terrible. There's no fundamental way on which this works, and about the only nice thing I can say about the film is that if Tom Six is in any way true to his word, at least we won't get a fourth one. This is bad. This is very, very bad. It is just... It's awful. It's a film which genuinely begs the question of what would be worse, watching the film a second time or physically being stitched into an actual human centipede.
What would you prefer?
I don't know. That's the problem with the film. The Human Centipede almost looks like an enticing proposition as opposed to actually watching another one of these fictionalised attempts at human centipedes.
Yeah, I'd go with the actual Human Centipede and watch this.
That's it, and you and I watched the first one for the first time.
The head of the centipede. I mean, it could be worse things.
The head of the centipede, incidentally, is played by Tiny Lister. Do you know Tiny Lister?
No.
It wasn't Zeus in No Holds Barred.
Well, funnily enough, he was actually in another film with Eric Roberts. He was in The Dark Knight. He was the convict who threw the bomb out of the window. The bomb remote. Yeah.
But like Ving Rhames looking guy.
Give it to me, and I'll do what you should have done 30 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Poor man's Ving Rhames.
Poor man's Ving Rhames.
I don't know what it says about me that I went to the one.
You went to the Hulk Hogan first.
Yeah, before Dark Knight.
That's
okay,
fine. I couldn't remember him in that one, but I did remember him. Yeah. Right, so let's just avoid it like the plague.
Let's leave it with
Genuinely. Okay, so let's have a look then. We've got some competitions this week. We should plug on the website. We've got some great competitions on the website this week. I don't know if you've been keeping up this week.
I have, yeah.
We've got some awesome stuff. So if you go along to onscreenfilm.com, our website, go in the competition section on there. There's loads, just enter on there. No questions, I think it's all just entry form stuff. Loads of different prizes to give away. We're giving away Ted 2 teddy bears. I'm quite proud of this one. Actual talking Teds. They apparently say 10 different things, and I don't know if these are the R-rated ones or not.
I'm going to say, are they like I Love You and stuff, or is it more
no, they tend to be... I've got one of the ones from the first movie, and it tends to be just lines from the film. Hey, Johnny, when you get another beer, huh? You know, that kind of thing. We've also got prize sets for The Gallows to give away, which is the horror movie out next week, which is, like a hoodie and headphones, notebook, and a locker mirror, which is because it's set in a high school. Okay. We've also still got running competitions for The Wedding Ringer. You can win a Blu-ray and a prize pack for The Wedding Ringer. And what seems to bizarrely be our most popular competition at the moment, which is DVD copies of Chappie. And just so that people know, those notifications, every time someone enters a competition, they come through to, tablets, phones, and iPads of various members of the on-screen team. And some of us have just taken to switching them off now. we just check back once an hour, and there's just 500 new entries. But yeah, go to onscreenfilm.com, go in our competition section. TED prizes, Gallows prizes, Chappie prizes, and Wedding Ringer goodie bags to give away. So what's our next review then?
We have Dear White People.
You've seen this one as well.
I have seen this. Yeah, I've seen Dear White People, Love and Mercy, and Ted. So
you see a 3 for 5.
I'm never usually this good. I've usually seen like one.
60% of this week's new releases.
I'm 4 for 5 in your face.
What's the 4?
That's the sort of song I see, and I've seen the other 3 parts.
But you haven't seen Human Centipede.
Yeah, so the only one you've avoided is the Human Centipede. Sky.
But I say, I think I've won against you as well because you saw Human Centipede.
Good point, yeah.
It's funnily enough.
Wilson's one.
It's true, but you talk about winning on the subject of Human Centipede. Whilst I was watching it, I thought of a moment I had in university when I went to talk to a girl who I was really into, and I got really clumsy and tripped up and fell down a flight of stairs. And that's a really embarrassing, really just cringeworthy moment for me. But I'm genuinely considering, should I ever actually meet Tom Six, giving him that story, and he can mock me for it forever, and hold it up as the most embarrassing thing about me. However, as embarrassing as that is, I get to hold it against him that he made the Human Centipede trilogy, which I think is actually worse.
I don't think he would ever see it as being about... If you can make something...
Well, he's not self-aware. It's quite clear he's not self-aware.
Yeah. He seems pretty bloody deluded.
This is a guy that would have to try really hard to be Eli Roth. I mean, that's saying something. And Eli Roth managed to take Keanu Reeves down with him, but...
Yeah.
God help.
After John Wick as well. He was
John Wick.
He was on the Keanu wave.
Did you get to see Knock Knock in the end?
No. I still haven't had that pleasure.
Have you avoided that one so far? Okay, so what we got then is Dear White.
Dear White.
So this is the feature debut of Justin Simeon, who's a sort of up-and-coming young indie filmmaker. And what he's done with this sort of satirical dramedy is to take on the issue of race and more common sort of the perception of race in contemporary America, in the Obama era of America's history. Because we have entered this weird sort of political phase now, and it seems to have happened sort of ironically since Obama came to power, where race has become more of a hotbed issue again for almost probably the first time, because we had a quiet spell of a couple decades when I think we were too focused on the war on terror, and now we've gone back to it's come back. So we've got a film that attempts to take this issue and deal with it head on, and it takes the form of a young, aspiring black female film student played by Tessa Thompson, whom, if we're just going to call her anything, let's just call her Selma's Tessa Thompson, because that's what she's going to be more known for than this film. She writes a book about the issue of race within her university, which is a predominantly white upper class university, Winchester University, and the book causes a sort of an undercurrent to the environment around her, which threatens to boil over into something more. In the meanwhile, you've got a student election in which the issue of race is coming up as well, and then you've got a young, gay, black journalism student who is given the chance to work for the prestigious newspaper of the university solely so that he can use his insight to write an article about Tessa Thompson's character and race at the university. Here's a clip. Now, I want to point out this clip is a decidedly more comedic moment involving a cinema box office. It's impossible to find a clip for this film that doesn't contain harsh language, and it has been bleeped accordingly. Here we go.
Man, Tyler Perry.
Yeah, can we have a movie with, characters in them instead of stereotypes wrapped in Christian dogma?
Why is every educated person inherently evil? Why is this in a dress all the time?
How come the only black movies Hollywood wants to make are ones with black mammies in fat suits?
Or black women in pain, man?
So basically, we got black people dying in the past and black people dying in the present.
Most people are here to see Fang 9. It's got 2 chains in it.
Oh, damn!
So yes, apparently young black college students don't like Tyler Perry either. So we have something in common there.
So why has he got so much money?
I don't know. But you see, this is what we're doing. We're crossing racial barriers because none of us like Tyler Perry. So we're transcending race. We just don't like Tyler Perry's movies. But yeah, the clip exemplifies a predominant issue with the film. And it's nothing to do with its addressing of racism. It has to do in how it handles its own tone. And the film it was marketed to you and I, Wilson, remember, as a comedy.
Yeah.
With that scene with the theatre box office front and centre, that was actually the teaser on its own, was that scene. And my response to having seen that teaser was, oh my God, I have to see that movie because this is taking my view of race, which is, why is race dealt with in a very specific, boxed off and tidy fashion that can only then trade on the guilt of other races and be recognised for awards? Why is there no real down-to-earth, grounded level dealing of racism? So the film takes that issue in the form of that clip. However, for the rest of the film, it doesn't go with the comedic angle. It goes with the preachy angle. And that's a bit of an issue because there's far too much po-faced, humourless ranting. And it's monologue. It's monologuing 101.
Yeah.
I don't know if you found this with it, but
I did. I mean, I think the problem with the film is... can't remember the director's name now.
It's Justin Simeon.
Yeah, he's very unconfident with what he's trying to say, and so he has to do all these long moments of grandstanding. We're talking like 5-minute, 10-minute long scenes.
Exactly.
Where he does it, and the problem is when it comes to satire, you have to be a bit more subtle than that.
There's no punchiness to it.
No, it'd be like in Doctor Strangelove if in the war room there was someone there telling more how crazy they were. You've sort of, with satire, you've got to have them. You just act normally, and then we see what's wrong with them through there. We can't have people explaining, look, this is what's wrong, and this is what you should do instead.
Well, go on, how did you find the sort of tone overall? I think you struggled with it and what you said a little bit as well.
I struggle with it. I don't think I find it as preachy as what you're both saying, if I'm completely honest. I think I would agree if it was set in like a slightly wider scale, so if it wasn't set in a college, if it wasn't set in this kind of like small little microcosm where there's loads of different things going on, there's loads of different types of people going on. I think if it was done like a film like Crash, where it's loads of different types of people.
Now that is preachy.
That's preachy.
But however, if Crash though stopped every now and again to have a 2-minute long comedic sequence, we'd be having the same issue with Crash that we have with this. And it's because Simeon does those comedic sequences so well. And he says more in the comedic sequences than he does in the dramatic moments that are 5 times longer. So a 2-minute comedic sequence makes a better point about how, for instance, whites in America deal with black culture.
Are very serious issues, though.
Yeah.
So I would rather have those issues have like quite a bit of weight to them.
But then
the comedian has like some.
You'd rather just have one or the other.
Yeah, but then you have a drama. You don't have a comedy. You don't do the bits that he does very well, like the scene at the party, which is a fantastic scene, and I think all films worth seeing just for that alone. But you can't have that, then you can't have all the preachiness. Either way, sort of tonally, it's jarring.
It's a bit of a mishmash.
Yeah, I think it is uneven. I think the politest way to call it would be uneven. I would say in terms of its tonal unevenness. Having said that, I'm just running out of time. I will say this: Tessa Thompson, great in it. Does a fantastic job with it. I like Tyler James Williams as well as the young journalism student, and I particularly like an appearance by Dennis Haysbert as the sort of dean of the. Yeah. I thought he was great. Always a fun actor. So he turns up in Ted 2 as well, and shows that he can do dry humour extremely well.
Dennis Haysbert day.
Yeah, he does an extremely dry bit quite well.
I found his relationship with the president quite interesting because those guys were like kind of best friends, went to the same school, and they have this kind of like bitter rivalry. And he's the dean, and his friend the president. We both got kids that were at the school. And so I found that That's pretty interesting to
There
watch.
are things to like in it, but I think it's so uneven that there are things you'll like that will just get quickly squashed, or vice versa.
I would like to see what he comes up with next.
I would like it though if it was more either a drama or a comedy, because it's quite clear that he doesn't seem to be able to balance the two.
With the latest film news and reviews, this is Offscreen.
Welcome back to Off Screen. So, what have we got next? We're going to do another review. Shall we have a look at the Thunder Buddies?
Oh, yeah, Ted 2. Let's do it.
Ted 2. Well, this one's been... It seems like, I think about 2 minutes after Ted ended, we were told, hey, Ted 2 is coming. Mm-hmm. And, it's, well, I mean, was anyone really amped up and looking forward to this? Of interest?
I was going to watch it. I enjoyed the first one, and I figured I was going to enjoy this one probably as much.
Because I'm a huge fan of the first one. I think the first one is great. I think it's a genuinely great comedy. But it is lightning in a bottle for Seth MacFarlane. Because,
it's that fun, high concept.
Yeah, it's one of the few times he's gotten it right.
Yeah.
This, Ted 2, is far more in line with the average Family Guy episode, I think. Or more, actually, you know what I equated it to? The Stewie Griffin movie that he did a few years back.
Oh, yeah.
Very much so.
Was it The Untold Story?
Stewie Griffin, The
Untold
Story.
Split up.
Yeah,
that's a TV show.
But it is very much that, like a plot line. Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. So, okay, it's been 3 years, I believe, since the end of Ted, because he's been working his job for 3 years, we're told at one point. Right, the general gist now is that Ted has gotten married to Tammy Lynn McCafferty, who is the Bostonian mole he started dating in the first movie. Who's got an expanded role this time around. In the meanwhile, Mark Wahlberg's character, John Bennett, has gotten divorced from Laurie, which I'm sure is completely intentional before Mila Kunis got pregnant and was unable to do the sequel. But for the sake of argument, let's just say it was intended. And, the first year of marriage doesn't quite go so well for Ted and Tammy Lynn, and they decide to work through their problems by having a child. When it turns out they can't have a child, they then decide to adopt a child, and their adoption request raises red flags with the government, who realise that they had never quite gotten around to certifying who or what Ted as an entity actually is. This is something that was hinted at in the first movie. So what you have is a movie in which Ted's various parts of his life are stripped from him one at a time. So his job, his marriage, his pizza rewards membership, all these things are taken away from him because he's legally property. And he and John decide to sue the government for Ted's right to be recognised as a person, and effectively pursue a civil rights argument of their own. And they take on a lawyer who is a young, inexperienced, recently graduated lawyer, played by Amanda Seyfried, to help them out pro bono on the case. Here's a clip in which they meet her.
You must be Ted.
Yeah, I'm Ted. This is my buddy John.
Hi.
My uncle says that you guys are my first clients.
It's been discussed, but do you mind if I ask how old you are?
I'm 26. What, is there a problem?
Well, I just don't want my lawyer singing Frozen songs during the opening arguments.
Oh, I'm Samantha Jackson.
Ted, how are you?
Good to meet you. John.
Nice to meet you.
Wait. What's your middle name?
Leslie.
Oh, my God. so you're Sam L. Jackson.
Just like Sam L. Jackson.
Who is that?
You ever seen any movie ever? He's the black guy.
So that's the Sam L. Jackson bit you've seen in every trailer and every advert. Also, who's calling Samuel L. Jackson Sam L. Jackson? Like Sam Jackson, I can understand. Sam Jackson, that's fine. Who's calling him Sam L. Jackson?
Seth MacFarlane.
Apparently Seth MacFarlane, yeah. Also, that is one joke, actually, and this becomes a recurring thing, actually, throughout Ted 2. It is a joke that actually had been used before on Family Guy, in which they visit a porno set, and, I bet Samuel L. Jackson's here. He's in everything. And he's there, and he's... But there are a lot of jokes in Ted 2 that have this problem. They have actually already appeared in the actual plot of the movie has been done in Family Guy because they did it with Brian Griffin at one point, and that's the first season of Family Guy, isn't it? Brian Portrait of a Dog.
But I'd say that with the first 10 episodes.
Episodes. Right, so what you have, whereas the first movie was this incredibly clever and just enjoyably, gleefully nasty, yet well thought out adult fairy tale, for lack of a better term. What you have this time is very much a bogus journey. sort of a sequel, which is, let's just take the same characters, we'll give them a similar kind of plot, but rather than do what we did last time, it's a wavy sort of a through line with a lot of sketches involved, and then there's a B plot which is straight out of a cartoon, in which we'll bring back the previous movie's villain, which is Giovanni Ribisi.
Yeah.
And like you said, Wilson, when you saw his name on the credits,
he was by far the worst thing in first Ted. He seemed pretty unnecessary. And again, here he seems pretty unnecessary.
I'd say that as well. I mean, I can live with it in the first Ted. That's fine. It helped.
You don't need to bring him back.
It worked fine.
Yeah.
You don't need to bring him back.
Could have been somebody else playing him. I do really like him.
I like him as an actor. I like him as a comic
Yeah.
actor as well.
He's one of those people that whenever I see him, just kind of pop up. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, you do. He has that. Oh, hey, Giovanni's here. But
Phoebe's brother.
Exactly. Frank Jr. Yeah. But which is there's a whole generation of people only know Giovanni Ribisi as Frank Jr. But yeah, he's the worst thing in this, and his entire storyline just does not need to be there because it takes away from what is actually a fairly interesting concept that the first movie had only really hinted about. The first movie had this constant reference to Ted, for instance, having legal trouble and trouble in the tabloids, and you wondered at points in the original Ted, about, so he can drive a car. Does he have a license? How's that worked? He's been on talk shows. So presumably there's been a stage where the government recognised him and then everyone else, the pop culture, just forgot about him. I always assumed that was the idea with Ted. And this movie sort of takes that as, yes, that was the idea. Now they've just remembered he's here and he's not a person. And I like that idea. The whole civil rights issue is quite clever. It's quite a meaty concept. There's a lot that you can bite off and chew from that concept. And having people like, for instance, Morgan Freeman involved in it, on paper is brilliant. In practice, Morgan Freeman has next to nothing to do in this film. He appears twice.
Yeah, he's in it for about 4 minutes.
There's 4 minutes of screen time, I would say, and one of those is to recycle a joke from earlier in the movie about hard candy.
That wasn't even a joke.
It wasn't even...
No, it's just like... First time I was like, wow, weird way to end the scene. And the second time I was like...
That happens a lot in that film. Like, there'll be one kind of throwaway gag. First time you hear it, it's quite good.
Exactly.
And then you hear it 3 or
There's
4
one
times.
about internet pornography. Google pornography. That gag keeps coming back.
First time it was quite funny, and then...
Yeah, the first time, great. Maybe once towards the end, but it happened like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Now, of the cast, Mark Wahlberg, given slightly more to do this time around because, he's got a bit of a character, he's sort of down on his luck take on the character. That's fine.
Just lost his wife kind of thing. Yeah.
Although I do want to point out, for the sake of argument, that Mark Wahlberg's haircut changes constantly throughout the film. Because when in the first Ted, his haircut is supposed to be modelled on Flash Gordon. That's the whole point. It's meant to be Flash Gordon's haircut. There are points, just shots. There are shots in the movie where he's just got the Mark Wahlberg haircut. And then he goes back to having fun, and it's really distracting. Amanda Seyfried is very enjoyable in it, I thought. Very enjoyable. She was one of the best things about A Million Ways to Die in the West. But here she's, far more welcome female lead than Mila Kunis was. But that wasn't Mila Kunis' fault, that was the writing. That character is the worst thing about the first movie.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make a lick of sense. The plot of the movie is that she was ungrateful and should never have said anything. Okay, yeah, you go girls. But, that's how I took Ted. But yeah, she's got a lot to do this time around. She's quite lovable, it's quite endearing. But of course, as always, the star is of course, Ted. And there's a real big irony to the idea that you've got a movie that's talking about whether or not Ted is a person. And for most of the duration of the film, you've forgotten he's a computer-animated character. And
it's got the most personality.
He does. But they have found a way to use the character in new and sort of more inventive ways. So the very early scene involving a domestic argument is quite well executed. And just when you think it might be going a little bit too dark, there is a sequence with the neighbours and shouting and the parlour, which sells it. I absolutely love it. It's worth pointing out there is a moment in a stand-up comedy club that had Wilson and I rolling around the floor.
By far the best scene.
By far the best scene in the film. It is the equivalent of the first movie's job interview scene. In terms of, he just comes out of nowhere and just whacks you over the head. It is a great comedic moment. That's my favourite moment. No one's ever talked to me like that before. There are issues with it. The sketch comedy aspect is a little bit Family Guy. There's a lot of cutaways that you just think, really? You spent a day of your life filming this? Mm-hmm. You took a day of your life to take Mark Wahlberg and presumably a dwarf in a mocap suit out on a speedboat to the middle of the Hudson River to then bury a laptop. You filmed all this for the sake of 5 seconds of a cutaway.
It really is just a Family Guy cutaway.
It is. It really is. And there's a lot of that to the film, and like the improv, the stand-up club thing. There are a lot of cutaways. Some of them land, some of them don't. But the ones that land so well that they sort of keep the laughter going through the ones that don't. And it is nowhere near as even as Ted was. It is nowhere near as successful as Ted was. But it's still enjoyable. It's far better than it has any right to be, purely in terms of sheer enjoyability, I think. So...
I enjoyed the Tick references. That was
very clever, wasn't it?
Really good, yeah.
There was a lot of actual nerd humour in it, wasn't there?
Well, in fact, the climax takes place in New York Comic Con.
Yes.
Yeah.
With all its product placement.
With all its product placement. Did you know there's a Godzilla movie coming, Wilson? Because I didn't until I saw this film.
Neither did
I. Marketing.
I wonder when that's coming out.
Yeah, I can't wait. Are they rebooting Godzilla again? Wow.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that 14 months ago.
Yeah, you know who'd be good to direct that? That guy that's doing that Star Wars spin-off. He'd be quite good.
Oh, well, we're doing a Star Wars spin-off. I had no idea.
Star Wars is apparently coming back, wasn't it? But, right. So Ted 2, the fans are going to love it. Non-fans, possibly not. If you're not a fan of the first one, I wouldn't particularly
like maybe 20 minutes, which is about the length of a Family Guy episode.
Yeah, basically that. Can't really say much fairer than that. So, box office top 10 time. Should we have a look?
Number 10.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Not this film next week.
Fair enough.
Number 9.
Okay, number 9, we have Mr. Holmes sitting in.
Did you get to see this one then?
I still haven't seen it.
Because this seems like the kind of thing you race out and see.
Have I just got a type for now?
You've got a type, Case.
And it's Bill Conti.
You like highbrow concepts. That's what you like.
It's for glasses, man. It makes me look classy when I actually am.
That's what it is, because you do otherwise look like Joaquin Phoenix in Her. Right, no, I really enjoyed Mr. Holmes. I almost said Mr. Her then.
Oh, that's a matchup I need to see.
That really is. Ian McKellen's face on a pink background.
Watson is like Siri.
It's just the voice of Roger Allen when he falls in love with a computer. Right, so Mr. Holmes, really enjoyed it. Great performances on several levels, because obviously different time periods. Great performances all around from Ian McKellen as the, elder ×3 Sherlock Holmes. Terrific direction from Bill Condon. Great writing, terrific script. Really just overall impressive drama. One for the Sherlock fans, one for the non-Sherlock fans, anyone looking for a good drama, because there's an interesting mystery thriller aspect to it, but it is played on a rather drama-based level.
Number 8.
Number 8, you're really going to make me pronounce this.
Go on, what is it?
Guillaume
Tell, Royal Opera.
Royal Opera.
Just say opera, we're not reviewing it.
Yeah.
We're not reviewing it!
Okay, there you go.
At the same time as singing this, Tell, right.
Number 7.
Okay, number 7, still hanging in there. Just about a little, small independent film. The Empire Strikes Back.
Never heard
Secret Cinema. So, it's still making that same amount of money. What are the odds? You'd almost think it had sold out. Wilson, Empire Strikes Back, what do you think of the film?
Like I said, I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
No.
Case?
Isn't it something to do with Star Trek?
It is. It's that one after Spock dies.
It is, yeah.
Number 6.
Number 6 is Spy.
Did you see Spy?
I did, yeah. I quite enjoyed it. A bit bloated, but Melissa McCarthy's excellent in it.
No, I had to ask this one because you're a Peter Serafinowicz fan.
He wasn't that good in it.
He wasn't that good in it.
But he never is in films. Yeah, like in Guardians of the Galaxy, he was terrible in it as well.
No.
Stick to the impressions, Peter, for God's sake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or at least
watch a Brian Butterfield film.
Yes, that'd be fantastic.
Oh, man.
I want to watch the quiz movie. I want to watch, what's the name of the quiz show? You Must Kill the French Ambassador. Did we insert that into a show once?
We did.
It was one of those spy thrillers. We inserted that clip. Yeah, we kept doing it. I had the chance to watch Spy again the other day, and do you know what? It is gut-bustingly funny. I liked it more the second time, strangely, than the first. I still maintain, however, that Statham is the best thing in the film. But as you and I said a while back, the interesting thing about Spy is you just take it as writ that Melissa McCarthy is funny as hell in it. Which speaks volumes about the quality of her work, I think, that you just assume she's brilliant in it. And you know what? She'll prove you right.
Number 5.
The Amy Winehouse documentary, Amy.
Have you seen this one?
No, I'm actually going to watch it tomorrow.
Ah, fair enough. This is Asif Kapadia's follow-up to Senna, which you were a fan of.
I love Senna.
Yes, fantastic.
I see. I need to rewatch it. I watched it at the time, and I don't think I ever really got around to absorbing that one properly. However, I was a very big fan of Amy. In terms, it makes larger statements than what you would assume. It makes grand statements about how the public and the media consume the culture of celebrity and how we respond to it. But that's all sort of in addition to what is actually quite an in-depth and impressive sort of portrayal of really this sort of the would-be rise and fall of the legend that never got to be. And I was impressed with it. I want to watch it again. I wasn't interested in Amy Winehouse before the film. I'm more interested in the story now, having seen the documentary. And evidently there's a lot of fallout from it as well.
Especially with her dad.
Number 4.
Magic Mike extra large.
You know what I was going to do last night, Wilson, when you and I went to see Ted 2? Because we went to see it on a whim. We just had nothing to do. I'd already seen it and reviewed it, and he needed to... Yeah, so I just booked the tickets online, and I did think, I briefly considered just booking tickets to Magic Mike, not telling him, and then going in, watching it, and just seeing what he made of it. It's a lot of fun.
When does the bear show up?
When does the bear show up? Right there, it's called Kevin Nash.
Wait, you just saw that film for me.
But, yeah, Magic Mike XXL. Right. There have been... I'm just going to say it's a lot of fun. It's got nowhere near the wit or intelligence of the first movie. Or story. You can fit the story... You write the story out on your pinky if you want to. You literally won't stretch further than that. But whatever you do, don't start waving your pinky around talking about Magic Mike, because it just sends the wrong message. And it is a lot of fun. It is very much a good time movie. However, the comments I would normally defer to, which are just people on the internet, the Facebook, the Twitter crowd, most of them aren't broadcastable. Because it seems like it's appealed to the filthier part of the minds of its audience. I'll just say that. I saw this in a crowded, alcohol-fueled press show full predominantly of women, and it was like being at an actual strip show. That's what the atmosphere was like. Women, men, everyone was just going nuts at this film. It was like the audience of an actual strip club. It was bizarre.
I'm sure it was a press show. You didn't just wander into a Soho nightclub.
Yeah,
it's entirely possible. There are a few Soho nightclubs right behind the View. But I mean, my favourite comment actually comes from Lizzie Tasker, whose response to seeing the film was, and I quote, "Blimey, they don't call it XXL for no reason."
Number 3.
Jurassic World.
What's left to say?
Money.
It has. What's left to say on Jurassic World? I mean, can I just point out, none of us have noticed that Age of Ultron has disappeared from the top 10.
Which means that we don't have to have our usual weekly segment.
We don't.
What else do we need to say about it?
We don't do our weekly. I've just said it for Jurassic World because that's going to become the next one. Like, can we really?
It's
say
going to hang in there for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Hey, Kase, I want to militarise dinosaurs.
Hey, Vincent D'Onofrio. Okay, I used to be in the Navy, and I'm Chris Pratt.
That's cool, but I want to militarise dinosaurs. That's
pretty much all.
That's his conversation. How do you take your coffee?
What about that?
No, I want to militarise dinosaurs. Everything with this guy is militarising.
Hey, you've been eaten by a raptor. That's fine. I'm just going to militarise it first.
Hey, Mr. D'Onofrio, I'm calling from AT&T. You satisfied with your long distance plan? Yes, but I really want to militarise dinosaurs. It's that level.
It's not really a character, is it?
It's not really. I mean, his character's name could literally be first name militarised, second name dinosaurs.
Mr. M. Dinosaur.
Exactly. But Dianosaur.
Much better.
But no, I love Jurassic World. I think it's a lot of fun. You and I never got to talk about this, Wilson, actually. Did you enjoy it?
This is where it gets awkward. I didn't like it.
Did you not like it?
No.
Oh,
Nothing at all?
I felt like it was just a complete retread and it bored me.
Okay, that's fair.
That's
I think you felt about it then how I felt about the Robert Rodriguez Predators movie then, because that's kind of how I felt about Predators, where it feels like you're retreading it so that you can then do the sequel that we wanted this time around. So like you do the reboot effectively, which remakes the first movie, so that you can then do the sequel that you actually wanted to do.
Yeah, but I'd say, considering they remake Spider-Man once every 2 years, I might as well just remake Jurassic Park and got on with it from there.
It's kind of surprising actually they didn't, but I suppose there does say something about the respect that Hollywood actually has for Jurassic Park that they didn't even consider it. But any thoughts you want to add to Jurassic World?
Apart from wanting to militarise dinosaurs, that's about it.
But who doesn't?
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt is not one of those.
He's the only person who doesn't. That's why he's the hero that we need.
Number 2.
Terminator Genesis.
Now, you liked this more than I did, Wilson.
I did, yeah. I sort of ignored all the different timey-wimey stuff going on.
There's more timey-wimey stuff in this than an actual episode of Doctor Who. It's weird.
No, I can't believe it was just referencing Doctor Who as well.
I was just counting all the timelines that it was in.
Oh, don't even get me started. You saw this in the end?
I saw it last week with my fiancée.
That was it. He sent me a photo of Kase when they came out of the cinema screen, and she's just got this dumbfounded yet sort of angry look on her face. And he sends it me with, "This is Kase's face after coming out of Terminator Genesis." My only thing is, just for how they spelt Genesis, Phil Collins must be spinning in his grave. Yeah. But
can I just say, about text messages as well? Notice that I wrote Genesis with an I, not a Y.
You did. I did notice that. Yes.
I'm just surprised that over here they didn't call it Terminator Mega Drive.
No, that's very true. Yeah,
that's going to be the sequel that they're going to try.
It's going to be really funny. Go to Terminator Famicom. Nerd humour.
Terminator Commodore.
Terminator 3DO.
Oh god,
that's going really.
Terminator Philips CDI.
Oh, Terminator Jaguar. Oh. Right. But by the way, did you notice the Independence Day sequel got the dreaded R subtitle? Independence Day.
Oh yeah.
Because Dave and I used to have this thing that sequels always got R subtitles. So, resurgence, revisited, redemption, retribution, retaliation,
revolutions.
Yeah.
Reloaded.
Yeah, exactly. Independence Day got one as well. Terminator Genesis, let's see. As a fan of the Terminator franchise, I wish it didn't exist. Tell a lie, as a fan of the Terminator franchise, I wish time travel did exist so we could erase this one from the timeline. This is a movie which manages to actually make Terminator Rise of the Machines look like a genuinely great sequel. Yeah. It is, however, better than Terminator Salvation, which leads me to another point, which is that Jai Courtney is actually not terrible in this film, largely because Christian Bale had been so bad last time around.
You know the film is in grave and utter peril when Jai Courtney is one of the best things in
Yes, yeah, that kind of tells you where you're at. It's like saying Sam Worthington's good. You know the film is awful.
Yeah.
Number 1.
And number 1, those Minions.
Them minions, dog. Which Wilson hasn't seen because he promised he'd wait for his sister before he went and saw it, and she's currently on holiday, so...
It's going to be...
Sucks to be you, Willie.
It's going to be in the cinema until Star Wars comes out, so don't worry about it. Until Minions 2 comes out.
You're going to be lining up to see Force Awakens, so many kids coming out with Minion dolls. Like, these are not the small sidekicks you were looking for. But no, Minions was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Did you get to see this? Because you weren't terribly enthusiastic about it, were you?
I've still not seen it. I will give this one a go. I will give it a go eventually.
I would say people have been really sort of snooty and kind of elitist about it. It's an animated spin-off. It's Penguins of Madagascar for a different franchise.
It does kind of smell like a cash-in, but what do you expect? Exactly.
I mean, to be perfectly frank, I'm kind of impressed they waited this long to do a Minions spin-off, because I'm impressed they made us sit through Despicable Me 2 before doing a Minions spin-off.
They could have done it straight after the first.
Because surely any sane marketing guy would have been like, you're not doing a Despicable Me sequel, you're getting a Minions movie and that's it. And then we'll do Minions sequels. We're not doing Despicable. Get out of here.
I think I'm more excited to see that studio do other films, so I'm more excited to see Secret Life of Pets.
Yes, Secret Life of Pets. That's going to be huge.
That's going to be so big.
The Secret Life of Pets trailer was actually on. We did the Sunday morning gala press show in Leicester Square for Minions in IMAX, and they played the only trailer they played beforehand was Secret Life of Pets, and on a big IMAX screen, first thing Sunday morning, lots of sugar fueled kids. My God, the roof nearly came off the place. Everyone, the kids, the adults, we were all laughing ourselves senseless. I just want to see Louis C.K. as that dog in that movie.
Waiting for his owner to come back.
Yeah, and the Dachshund with the blend. Secret Life of Pets is going to be amazing. So we got one more review?
One more.
Love and Mercy.
One more. So Love and Mercy, which is only the second feature from Bill Pollard, who has only directed one other film in 25
what was his
years.
Previous film?
I forget, because it was like a no-name film from 1990. He's been producing in the meanwhile. He's produced loads of... He's a producer on 12 Years a Slave. He's produced loads of things.
Dude's got an Oscar then.
Yeah, dude has an Oscar.
Yeah.
Produced loads of things over the course of 25 years. Never really directed much. Now he's directed this, which is the story of Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys at two different times in his life. One in the 80s, in which he's played by John Cusack, and he'd be, I would say in his 50s?
He would have been late 40s, 50s.
Late 40s,
that
early
point,
50s, in which he struggles with his mental health and also issues involving his caretaking, people who are taking care of him who may or may not be taking advantage of him, and along the same time meets the woman that will eventually become not only his second wife, but actually his salvation, both physically and emotionally. You also have, running parallel to this, the story of Brian Wilson, played by Paul Dano in the 1960s, in which he is basically establishing himself as an artist and struggles with conveying the mess of musical thoughts in his head to the people around him, basically getting them on the same page as himself and his visionary take on the Beach Boys music. We have a clip.
Do you know who this man is? Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys.
You didn't mention that.
Well, because that stuff doesn't matter. That's ego stuff, you know?
Are you kidding me? I love your music. I grew up on it. So thank you.
That makes me feel really good, Melinda Ledbetter.
Okay.
Melinda
Good enough.
Ledbetter.
Right? It's a nice name. Why don't you get started on the paperwork, okay?
So Love and Mercy there. Now, you were looking forward to this, weren't you, Kase?
Yes, I
No,
was.
I was so trepidatious about this one. I think because of the name of John Cusack, and I forgot somehow that Paul Dano and Elizabeth Banks and Paul Giamatti are in this film as well. Because you just told me John Cusack's the film, you're not exactly selling me nowadays. You know, there was a time.
Frozen Ground. And what was the one he did with Thomas Jane recently? It was like...
Oh, wasn't that Drive Hard?
Drive Hard, yeah.
Which should have been a sequel to Drive Angry. But you know, if only something we could have had.
But Cage plays the accountant.
Yeah, if we could have had a Cage Cusack reunion then. If we did that, but never mind. So, right, what you've got here are two completely separate films. You've got Paul Dano's film and you've got John Cusack's film. Now, they're both very different films, and to be perfectly honest, I found the Paul Dano film infinitely better than the John Cusack. More interesting, more engaging, more enjoyable than the John Cusack
I feel like
one.
he has more to kind of work with, though.
I think so as well.
Like he has a meatier part of his life to talk about.
Now that's the thing, because I think Dano's movie gets all the story, and Cusack's movie gets all the performance. And although Dano's performance is better, Cusack's movie is all about the performance, whereas Dano's is performance and story.
Mm.
And I think that's why his section of the film comes out looking so much better than John Cusack's. Yeah. Elizabeth Banks, very enjoyable, and it's sort of another feather in a cap, really, isn't it? It's ever increasing. It's less of a cap and more of a,
It's like a headpiece.
Like
for
a headpiece.
Hunger Games, isn't
It
it?
is,
It's like Effie.
It's kind of like it's an Effie Trinket style headpiece. If we talk about feathers in caps at this stage, Paul Giamatti, who's having fun with it, but reins it in just enough to keep it believable, I think.
Yeah.
Because it does threaten to go too
Tries
far
to
too
ham
far.
it up.
It does a bit, yeah.
But he keeps it reined in just enough, I think.
Especially for the hamburger scene, which you'll know if you go see it.
Yeah. There is a scene with that scene with the hamburger. You think, okay, this threatens to go a bit too far. This is going almost Ike Turner, on us here. There's a little bit of Ike Turner to this one, and no, you watch your figure. But no, I'd say Dano is terrific, and he does remind you in this film that he is one of the most unappreciated actors going today. Like, what's it going to take for Paul Dano to get some recognition? Because he's tremendous in this.
I mean, you go back and you watch There Will Be Blood.
Yes.
Obviously, Dano Lewis is absolutely stellar in that film, but
that's the thing. I mean, I don't remember him. I don't remember him before Little Miss Sunshine. That was the film where the first time I remember seeing him and going, wow, this kid is good.
Doesn't even talk for the first half of the film.
Well, exactly, yeah. Doesn't talk, but he's amazing in it. But no, I was a big fan. I think the film is tremendous. I think it was an excellent biopic. It does overcome some of the more worn cliches by being a little bit more considered, a little bit more about the character than sort of playing the more mawkish aspects of the plot for, mining that. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I mean, Wilson overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the end it was just a standard music biopic for me. But bear in mind, I went on like a Beach Boys kick a few years ago, so I know all about the story anyway. And it is a deeply fascinating story, both sides of it actually. Like the creation of Pet Sounds, and conversely other stuff where he's allegedly suffering from paranoid schizophrenia.
But was he, as the film asks?
No, is the answer. No. If you know Brian Wilson, no.
Yeah.
And I think they could have made two separate films here. I think each one was as interesting as the other. It's just that all the creation of Pet Sounds was
all the meat is in.
All the meat was infinitely better.
Yeah, I do kind of agree with that. I mean, seeing an entire film of Pet Sounds and seeing the kind of breakup of the Beach Boys after that, that would have been a fantastic film. For me.
Maybe it's for another biopic.
But no, I did really enjoy it. I agree. I don't think Cusack was performing his absolute best, but much better than he has been for the past decade. So it wasn't before like Redemption that I wanted.
I mean, to be honest, I'm going to give it Film of the Week. Because, I mean, it's kind of slim pickings, if we're honest. Ted 2 is enjoyable, but not really great.
Well, so you're not going to give it to
Human Centipede?
No,
because I'd actually rather be stitched into an actual Human Centipede. So, coming up on next week's show, we have, of course, The Rise of the Insect. It's Marvel's Ant-Man with Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas. We've also got horror film The Gallows next week. Remember we were talking about that with the competition. Is this found? I can't tell. Is this one found footage? This is found footage and hangings, isn't it?
Probably.
And a lot of red lighting for some reason. We've got the Ryan Reynolds sci-fi movie with Ben Kingsley. That's next week. Selfless.
With one of the worst floating head posters I've ever seen in my life.
It's a very floaty head poster.
As bad as a Marvel poster.
And this is one I'm really looking forward to because it had no marketing in the UK whatsoever. James Franco, Jonah Hill, True Story. A straight drama. Starring Jonah Hill, drama thriller. Jonah Hill, James Franco, True Story. And it's got Theory of Everything.
Ethan Supler's in it.
Check from Theory of Everything.
Felicity Jones.
Felicity Jones.
Yeah.
I was going to call her Felicia Hardy and then remembered that's her Spider-Man character. Yeah. Felicity Jones in it as well. How has this not had advertising? What are the marketing people
I saw
do?
the trailer at the cinema yesterday, actually.
Yeah, fair enough then. So there is some marketing.
There's like a really small amount of marketing. There's no posters or anything anywhere.
So, well, that's kind of all we have time for this week. This has been a Candy Store production for On Screen. I've been Van Connor.
I've been Kase Allen.
I've been Chris Wilson.
And we'll be back next week.
Just show me the way to get out of here, and I'll be on my way.
You've been listening to Off Screen. For more news and reviews, visit onscreenfilm.com.
Right, who put a question mark at the end of Wilson's script? It's not, I'm Chris Wilson.
Chris Wilson.
Do you know you're Chris Wilson?